This is, by far, the worst Resident Evil game I have ever played, the worst remake of a game I have ever played, and the worst game I have ever played in my entire life as a gamer. Hello everyone, welcome to my Resident Evil 4 remake, professional difficulty, no damage walkthrough. I don't even know if I'm going to be doing no merchant with this walkthrough. It remains to be seen. But if it eventually gets to the point where I just decide to use the merchant, I will not blame myself. I will blame the game, because this game is a shit game. It is so badly balanced. It was a rush Resident Evil game in terms of gameplay, in terms of story, in terms of characters, in terms of enemy designs, etc. I'll elaborate on these points later on when we get to certain parts of this game. But this is Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is a horrible start to Resident Evil 4 Remake, and honestly, every single chapter on this game is terrible. Like I said, guys, there's a reason why I said the things I said back in the intro of this video, and it's because this game is unbearable. This is the most insufferable game I have ever played, and there isn't a single chapter on this game that is good, because the poor designs are just so heavily apparent with this game on every single chapter. And Chapter 1 is the worst introduction to a Resident Evil game by far, because this is a reimagining of Resident Evil 4, right? Remember the iconic village fight? How you had to actually stand your ground, how you had to actually learn the game's mechanics, how you were already getting thrust into a horde of enemies, and you only fought a handful of enemies beforehand. You weren't having to rely upon exploits. I mean, I know some people use that knife exploit on the door, but that's just fucking feeble. They're noobs. There's no reason to do that whatsoever. Every single time I've done the village fight on the original version of Resident Evil 4, I've always stood my ground. I've always tried to use the mechanics to their full potential. And what do we get instead in this reimagining of the village fight? We get a fucking running simulator. And we get very, very ambiguous triggers for actually ending the sequence. And this village fight, it is a time-based sequence, so you don't have to kill any enemies. But in the process of dragging out this encounter for longer than necessary, the chances of you encountering a poor design with an enemy type, with their attacks, or with Leon's sluggish movement, or with the way the aiming works, or with the crappy flinch animations on this game, it's just better to kill the enemies. And you need to kill at least 16 to 17 enemies if you're going to end this sequence. And the step process for actually achieving the required kill count to get this sequence done is going to rely upon an absurd amount of technical knowledge, an absurd amount of forward knowledge, just very, very unorthodox and very weird strategies. And this is what is unfortunately going to be the entire game. This is what you're going to be relying upon the entire fucking game, because this game wears the poor designs like they're fucking medals. They want you to rely upon holes, they want you to rely upon exploits, because they couldn't design a more competent combat system that is complementary and respectful to the original Resident Evil 4. And this game is lacking in so much creativity, because this game is so much of a blend between Resident Evil 1 Remake / Resident Evil 2 Remake mentalities and Resident Evil 4 mentalities. The clashing of these mentalities all come together into this very shit game. And believe me, guys, I'm going to shit all over this game. I'm going to point out the objective flaws with this game. I'm just going to break down the very crude and unrefined arguments that people have defending this game. All the toxic people like Under the Mayo, all the other random people defending this game for the really stupid reasons possible. I'm going to shit all over them because they don't deserve any fucking respect. But when you first start the sequence, you'll want to hug the fence line, and then at a certain point you'll want to start walking, and then once you get past the corner, that's when you want to run and do the stealth kill, and then you'll want to, when you're going to get the grenade from the window, you'll need to expose yourself to the enemy that is in front of you, because if you're far enough away, he will always throw his axe, and you need him to throw his axe so that by the time you pick up the grenade and exit the window, he will not cock-block you. After that, you'll then want to retreat to the shed, funnel the enemies together so that you can get a whole horde of them together, use a grenade to kill most of them to contribute to the kill counter, make sure the enemies cluster by that fence line before you drop down, and then you'll want to just take out a couple of them with your pistol. And while you're doing this, you'll want to be actively moving towards this building, because at a certain point, you'll hear in the distance a bunch of villagers screaming, which means that another spawn is happening, and this is where the enemies are going to be dropping from their spawn points. They're going to be coming from unplayable areas, and so you've got to get inside this building before they have a chance to stack up and crowd up against you, because the AI on this game is so fucking bad, because for some reason, they're not very aggressive, and then other times they'll be very aggressive. And whenever you're trying to navigate through this village area, for some reason, some of the enemies don't choose to follow you. It's the same kind of problem that Resident Evil Village had in its first village encounter with the Lycans, where for some reason the Lycans would stay behind and just stay near a bunch of areas and just stand still just so they could cockblock you. I don't even know if that was intentional or if it's just a poor design. It reads more like a poor design, and just the way the enemies navigate through these buildings and through these various huts, it's just clear that the enemies are not very good at pathfinding, and these pathfinding issues can mess with their ability to get to you, and so if you run into them when you're navigating the environment, you're just going to get fucked by them, and you're going to have to run into a poor design in the process. But when you get over to that ladder, do not kick it. You'll want to use the shotgun and start killing enemies, because as long as you stay by that ladder, and as long as the enemies on the ladders behind me don't come through the window, you'll be able to stack up at that ladder and just start killing the enemies with the shotgun. Even the Chainsaw Man, even though he'll break down the door, he's programmed to go to the ladder rather than go through the door if you're standing by the ladder. It's very odd programming. Like I said, this sequence is so badly designed that you've got to break this game down to a rudimentary level. You've got to be so overly technical in your approach to this sequence, because they couldn't design a more competent sequence. They couldn't design a better combat system. They couldn't make Leon's movement better so that it's not so sluggish. They had to, unfortunately, remove so many flinch animations with the enemies on this game, and it's not complementary to the game's designs, because in a fast-paced game like this, where every quick decision is necessary for survival, you need that advantage of flinch animations. Not to mention, the enemies do all sorts of attack animations that are so bullshit, and no more so is this the case than with the fucking grab animations. The enemy grabs on this game are the worst grab animations I have ever seen in a Resident Evil game by far. Because not only do they get an absurd amount of range, they also have phantom range. They also can do a close range grab where they will run towards you and initiate a long range grab at close range, because they were too lazy to program in a better close range attack, and so they decided to offer a long range grab at close range that unfortunately fucks with the detection on the crouch, and they've designed avoiding the grab around crouching. And because of the fact that you have two independent animations happening at once, so one independent animation is your crouch, the other one is just the running grab that they do at close range, the chances of you being screwed by a bad hitbox are exceedingly high. And if you've watched my previous videos regarding the grabs, or like any other video regarding the poor designs of Resident Evil 4 Remake, you'll understand that when you get grabbed by the enemies, it's entirely up to them, even when you crouch. And there are a couple of bloopers in this video that showcase just how fucking ambiguous the detection is on the crouch, and why designing this grab system around the crouch as a way to actually avoid the grabs is so badly designed in this game and so bullshit that your only other option is to rely upon flinch animations, because whenever the enemies go into very specific running animations, like when they go into a neutral state of running, you'll be able to make them flinch. When you're dealing with the pitchfork enemies and they start doing that running attack on you, if you shoot them on any part of their body during that running attack animation, they will always flinch. And with the grabbers, if they decide to do the long range grab, you'll be able to shoot them and stun them. However, if they decide to do the close range grab where they run towards you and just initiate a long range grab at close range, you will not be able to stun them, because for some reason during the startup frames of their grab animation, they're completely invulnerable. And particularly during the close range attack, the startup frames are extended. And because you can't interrupt enemies during startup frames, and it's also the case with certain enemy attacks on this game, where you'd expect this to be the case where during every possible attack animation, you'd be able to flinch the enemies, but it's not the case with the grabs. Like, these factors combined together make the close range grab so fucking bullshit, and you cannot rely upon the flinch animations properly. It is so poorly designed. It does not contribute to survival horror gameplay. It just contributes to a very frustrating experience. The enemies are getting all these cheap advantages over you to just cheat. Like, these enemies are more bullshit than the Lycans ever were, and I originally considered the Lycans to be the worst basic enemy type in Resident Evil history. But the Ganados in this game have one-upped the Lycans severely, to a heavy degree. And also, this part right here, take the path exactly like how I'm doing it. Make sure you grab everything in this room. The Brute's going to bust through the door. Do not be close to that door, because he will always do an attack animation as a substitute to a scripted animation to break down that door. So he will attack you through the door when he does that slam of his. Now, I decided to disable the explosive trap. I know you can damage him with the explosive trap, and he goes into a stun animation that allows you to punish him with a knife, and then one more pistol shot will actually kill him. But the problem is, the enemies can attack you during all these animations where you get iframes, and because they're stacking the attack animations and doing their extended combos, they'll hit you when you come out of the animation. So I don't even do it. I instead just lure him up here by not having the trap active, so that he's going to be stuck on that upper area while I'm trying to make my way through this bridge. He will follow you across this bridge. I don't know why this isn't a leashing area. This is so fucking stupid. So a couple of enemies might potentially follow you, but mainly the Brute will follow you, but most of the time he will be accompanied by a couple of enemies. But what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to time when to hold X so that I get iframes once this hold X prompt is complete. So I got iframes just then. And bear in mind, when you're coming out of this animation, that's when the enemies will start attacking you. So he could have attacked me just then, I could have been fucked. And it's pretty bullshit. It's so fucking stupid that they're expecting you to just time your iframes and just hope and pray to God that he doesn't hit you at the right moment when you come out of the attack animation. But right here, take this path. This pitchfork lady will always do the running attack, so I will always be able to stun her. I don't know why they have to make the flinch animation so fucking awkward in this game. Why the hell do they have to make it where the enemies only flinch during very specific animations? Like, why do they have to be so awkward with it? Like, why are they trying to make this a very awkward gameplay experience? Like, why are they trying to make this game such a fucking joke? Why are they trying to make this game so much more clunky than it needs to be? Why are they making this game even more clunky than the original version of Resident Evil 4? Like, why are they removing such a heavy level of skill from this game? Why are they making you run past enemies mindlessly just to save up on ammunition? And even when you're doing that, you're not going to have enough ammunition. And I had to replay this game twice for my first playthrough to make it bearable. The amount of forward knowledge you need for these sequences is so fucking ridiculous. And this right here, I always use the shotgun on this guy because without a consistent flinch animation system, you have to rely upon the shotgun. You have to rely upon that kind of weapon to get past a bunch of fragile enemies that represent a very basic enemy type. And somehow, these enemies are able to be as resistant to flinch animations as Torres Mendez, and it makes no fucking sense. And it completely ruins any sense of setup with Torres Mendez. Like, how am I supposed to be amazed that he doesn't flinch from bullets in that one cutscene when Leon's shooting him, when every single enemy beforehand has just been resisting my flinch animations? It's so fucking retarded. And also, you'll notice that I'm getting a lot of good luck here with the hand grenades. I don't want to get a bunch of random hand grenades from random drops. I don't want that to be the case because I want this walkthrough to be generalizable to the general gaming community. That way, they can actually replicate the strategies properly. Not that they'll even care. They're probably playing with all of the upgrades from the merchant. They're playing with all the charms. They're playing with, like, New Game Plus weapons. And they are the people that are influencing New Capcom to deliver this very shoddy product that is the worst game I've ever played in my entire life. This feels more like a fucking alpha than anything else. This feels like a test build that was somehow given the gold status for actually being released to the public. And that's why this fucking alpha is in a worser state than Resident Evil Village was. Resident Evil Village may have had trouble development, and it might have had some really stupid designs, and it led me to consider the team that handled Resident Evil Village to be the most incompetent development team ever in gaming history. But Resident Evil 4 Remake has completely put that into a whole new perspective. The team that handled this game, I believe it's the same team that handled Resident Evil 2 Remake and Resident Evil Village. They are the worst development team I have ever seen for a fucking game ever. Because they somehow managed to make even more stupid, amateurish, alien mistakes than with Resident Evil Village's team. Oh, and by the way, this is Chapter 2, but I'm going to create a save after this little sequence right here. But you'll want to kill these enemies, because for some unknown reason on professional difficulty, it just feels like the door closes faster than usual. So you'll see right here, this is the same path that I was taking back on hardcore difficulty, and for some unknown reason, I just was not able to get to the door. And this happened a couple of times in my other playthroughs of professional difficulty. But what I'm instead going to do is rely upon the bear traps. When an enemy gets caught in a bear trap, if you do a melee attack, it will kill them instantly. Not always, though. There are those rare moments where, for some reason, the enemies can survive these melee hits, even when they get caught in a bear trap. It's very bullshit. But once we get our loot back and we pick up all the kitchen knives right over here, you'll be able to grab some pistol bullets back in the previous area, and also a sapphire, although the treasures, I don't even know why I'm trying to pick them up, but I'm just a kleptomaniac in survival horror games. But without the merchant, the treasures are pretty useless in this game, so there's really no need for me to get them, and a lot of the treasures are very useless in this game. but I don't even know why I'm calling it a game. This is a fucking alpha. I really should be saying that. And I cannot believe retards like Under the Mayo and other people have been praising this game. And I think even Ballback Soup likes this game. That just goes to show how fucking incompetent they are in terms of thinking, in terms of analyzing a game objectively. And I believe their speedrunner or like 1996 mentalities, because they come from that kind of era, are just bleeding into their actual judgments of this fucking alpha. And there's going to be a lot to say when denouncing these people that just genuinely believe that this remake is miles better than the original version of Resident Evil 4. How fucking retarded do you have to be to believe that? But moving on from that, here are some bloopers for this stupid sequence. So this right here is very poor detection on the grab. Even though I crouched under it, he somehow grabbed me at the end of the animation. Here is some phantom range bullshit on the grab. Expect to see more of that in the upcoming blooper sections for each of the chapters on this game. And then this right here was one of my original attempts at this. So I originally planned on using a hand grenade right over here because I know the enemies cluster right over here. But this is not recommended because one of these enemies could hit me, and you also have enemies stacking by this window like this guy was doing, so he was able to hit me with the bullshit grab. Here's how much range the Pitchfork Ganado get with their long-range attack. This right here was really stupid. So for some reason, my grenade disappeared. I threw the grenade, and it didn't detonate for some bizarre reason. Now, this next blooper right here represents why you shouldn't be going into this watchtower, because the enemies are so stupid. For some reason, they stack around the watchtower rather than going to the ladder, and they're so much slower compared to the Chainsaw Man for no reason. And this right here is another attempt at this sequence. So this is where I was trying to use the watchtower, and you can use the watchtower, but you should only really use it as a last resort. And you can shoot the enemies when they're climbing the ladder, but the problem is the enemies, they just stack up around the watchtower rather than coming up over here. And it doesn't make any sense for their aggressive nature. And somehow the Chainsaw Man is able to get over to this watchtower effortlessly, yet the other enemies don't. And the problem is, if you decide to jump down this tower, you have to throw a grenade before jumping down so that the enemies do not immediately attack you when you're recovering from the animation. And every time this Chainsaw Man climbs the ladder, I have no choice but to use the grenade, because he will not fucking flinch whenever he's on ladders, and it makes no fucking sense. They have to make this sequence even more awkward than necessary, just so we can actually witness the poor designs at hand. And so, he comes up here, he's about to kill me, and so I have no choice but to jump down. I end up getting pushed, and because I was still in the recovery frames of that drop-down animation, Leon went into that kind of lengthy push. He gets knocked to the ground, and so the enemies start stacking their attack animations on top of me, and so I have no chance of getting away. It's so fucking retarded, and I don't know why he doesn't jump out the window like he normally does with these high drops. And with this final blooper, why are these two enemies just standing here? I mean, you saw the left guy. He ran to the side, and then he turned around. That's very odd pathfinding. And then the other guy, he's just standing there. Why is he just standing there? I was by that fence area for a while. He should have had plenty of time to get to me, but he's just standing there for no reason. And just the way he's behaving, I mean, it comes across more as a poor design, and less like an intentional feature where the enemy strategically set up in very specific positions to cut you off from your escape route. It doesn't come across as intentional, it comes across as badly designed, and that's the kind of crap you're dealing with in this village intro. The AI on this game is just so weird with their behavior, and that's why they're just so badly designed. They're so awkwardly programmed. And then you want to couple this with the flinch animation problems, their tanky HP, the bullshit grabs, their other bullshit attacks. I mean, it's just a recipe for a disaster. It's the perfect storm for the worst kind of basic enemy type in a Resident Evil game. And there is going to be so much more of that kind of crap happening in the rest of the chapters. But this is the end of Chapter 1. Stay tuned for the future chapters. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.